Hello, this is next edition of Setting Up Azure Resources. I'm your host, Richard Knuckles. Thanks for joining us. So in the last episode, we created a new storage account, and here's where we left in the overview blade. Storage account is one of the basic services that most users of Azure will set up and use because it's so useful. It's a basic service for supporting storage for all types of data files, whether it's text files, CSV files, JSON files, other type of text files. You've got audio files, video files, and other unstructured data files, and just large-scale storage for any type of binary files, whether it's EXEs or zip files, archives, or backups for your database on-premise or in the cloud. It's got loads of uses. Plus, you can set up file shares with SMB network shares that you can connect to from your desktop straight up to a cloud server if you need to expand your on-premise storage. It also supports two other types of data storage. One, tables, which is a equivalent to NoSQL, a large key-based data storage system where you've got indexed storage of text data. And lastly, it supports basic queues. Queue is a type of first in, first out queue for channeling messages and applying disconnected service messaging between two different endpoints. So let's go over. In the previous episodes, we discussed access control for your Azure services, starting at the resource group level. For that resource group that we have, the East US-demo-prod-RG, we set up some services, and we set up a group for access at the resource group level. And one of the groups that we set up was the technical operations group at the contributor role, which gives them lots of access and lots of control over the resources that are added to the resource group. You can see contributor role at the resource group level. It's been inherited to the storage account that's in the resource group. And because the tech user is part of the technical operations group, it is also getting access. This tech user is getting access to the storage account at the contributor level via the resource group inheritance. So the first thing we need to do after we have created a storage account, at this point we only have a shell for collecting these four types of services that live under the storage account umbrella. First thing we need to do is create a service in the storage account so that we can actually use it. We've got four options here. Let's create a container first, which is a bucket for storing data files of all types. You could call this quite equivalent to a AWS S3 simple storage service bucket. In this case, we can give the container any particular name. Let's call this file store. Not particularly exciting, but there it is. The access level for these files. So as we went over in the last video, storage accounts can be secured by IP address by adding them in VNets so that their access via the internet is restricted. For this storage account, we added it as unrestricted access from the internet. Of course, all access from the internet is passed through Azure's backend firewalls with their own set of intrusion detection and security levels. But this, for anyone with the appropriate credentials, whether they be access through the portal or access to the REST API with a key, they can access services in this storage account. But one thing you can do for services in the include blobs, the containers, which is blob storage, you can actually make them publicly available as well, so that users do not need to authenticate or have any sort of access level to the files that you're putting up here. And that comes with two different levels of access. You can access either directly to a particular blob if you have the URL for the blob, or you can access the container itself and browse a list of files in the container. The default is private, no access unless you are authenticated and authorized to access the blobs themselves in this container. So we'll leave this at private, and we can demo later if you guys want how you set up and use anonymous access for these. But private is secure, even though people can hit the storage account endpoint from the internet. They don't have access to the containers. So now that we've created a container, we can see it listed here in this is the containers blob. Actually, you can see it listed in the left nav over here under blob service containers. Let's add a second container. Let's call this network store. Leave that one as private as well. Now you can see we've got two here. For any particular one of these, we can look at several things. We can delete the store or the container if we want to. We'll go over access policies later. We can see properties of the store, including the URL to actually access this store. Button here to copy it to the clipboard. And you can see when it was least locked, and if there were any files in it, you could calculate the storage usage of this particular container. We have access control at the container level here as well, so you can make access more secure, more granular at the container level, even though you've still got access here at the service level, at the storage account level for this group. You could add groups that have more restricted access at this level as well. Let's go back up to containers. So here is, clicked on the link to the network store container, and now we're actually seeing the browse for this container. And if there are any files here, we could actually see the files. Let's see, let me prepare a folder for you. So we can upload a file directly here from the Azure portal. And here on my Windows machine, you can see that here is a folder path, here is a file we can upload. And we have the option for overriding if exists. I'll show you this in just a second. So uploading the file, this is a small file, 67 kilobytes. We see we get the messaging in the Azure portal that the upload is completed. And you can see here on the left side that we now have a file listed here. So what happens if you try to upload the same file again? It's the file. Following file already exists. Can't upload it. So check this box. Upload. We have it uploaded again. We have the date of upload and time here. So that's keeping a record of the modified date for this blob. Modified date is one of the most important metadata on the files that you have in blob storage. So remember that. And because we've left this right hand upload blob blade open, we're getting a list of current uploads accumulating here. So one more thing we can try if we want to change the way this file goes. We'd override that. So we can use multiple methods to authenticate with this upload, and there are multiple tools you can use to upload files to Azure Storage. So this is more useful when you're not using the portal and already authenticated. In a future video, we'll show the Azure Storage Explorer, which this type of authentication comes in, is much more apparent. You can just select the type of blob that you want to upload here. Since this is a blob container, all of these are blobs that we're uploading. Block blob, page blob, or pin blob. There you go, blobs. So we've got multiple types here. A pin blob is for files that you wish to programmatically apply blocks of bytes to. A page blob is a rather larger type of file. The thing you might equate this with is a SQL data file, where you've got a file that consists of full blocks of data, where you upload and increase the file size by creating additional pages on that blob. And the block blob is pretty much your standard blob of any type of standard unstructured data file. Block blob is the most useful and standard way to upload these files because it's very common and you don't need to programmatically access the files. But it is more expensive for uploads than if you are managing your changes at the byte level. But that's much more complicated to manage. You can change the block size of these so that you maximize the file size on disk that you're taking up with each of the files that you upload in here, and 64 kilobyte for a 17 kilobyte or a 67 kilobyte file, possibly 128 kilobyte block size would make this more efficient to store, but 4 megabytes is the default and pretty easy to use. The last thing I want to talk about here is the access tier for loading files. This is one of the ways where you can, if you've already got a hot access tier by default for the storage account, you can upload a blob as in the cool tier or in the archive tier. And this is one of the few ways you can actually move a file into the archive tier. I'm not going to do it at this point because it does involve a minimum spend, a minimum of 90 days, I believe, for both the archive and the cool tier, to where those files basically must remain, and you're going to be paying no matter what for the storage duration for that file size for that period. So if you upload at the cool tier or the archive tier, you're going to be paying for 67 kilobytes in this case of storage for at least 90 days. And I'm going to remove this file fairly shortly. But one other thing we can do here is change the folder that we put this in. Let's do that one more time. Oh, looks like we have uploaded it to the archive. Well, so I'll be keeping that for a while then. Let's do that one more time. I think I forgot to put the trailing slash here. Nope. All right, learned something new. It's taking a while to set up this folder because I added the preceding slash to the folder name. So this is ch01, and here is the archive. Here's the file that we put in there. It's network store /blank/ch1 now. So let that be a lesson. No preceding slash when creating folder name, only succeeding slash. So the last thing I'll show you here is if you delete all of the files under a folder, then the folder itself will be removed. And now that we've gone back to the top, we no longer have that folder because these folders are not actual folders. They are merely parts of the name of the file. So the blob storage is interpreting them as a folder for you. You can look now at this file a little more closely. You can actually see it because it's a file that's it can be interpreted by a browser. Why don't I just make this a little easier and put it up here in this so you can see it. This is the name of the storage account .blob.core.windows.net. Here is the name of the blob container network store that we created. And then here's the name of the file appended to that. So this is a routable URL where you could access this file if it were made public. But it is not made public. We have secured this container as private. So we've got this checked. We're going to delete network store and delete all locks, all controls on that. So there we go. Thank you for watching today. That's it for this session of Service Accounts in Azure. I've been your host, Richard Knuckles. Thank you.
Click subscribe to see more videos like this. If you liked this video, hit the like button. Leave a comment in the section below to let me know what videos you'd like to see in the future.